from SET. Okay, so what I'm going to be looking at today is summarising in OET writing. It's something that people don't talk about a lot. I think it's quite an advanced technique to master, but we have to start somewhere. So today I'm going to go through that and have a little look at it with you. So contents. Why summarise? 2, understanding the task. Step 1, understanding the task. Step 2, some of the language that's involved. I'll give you some examples and show you how. And then I'll give you a little bit of basic advice. So let's talk about the first thing. Why should I summarise? Why should I summarise? Okay, so what I'm going to show you on the next screen, it might look a little bit busy, a lot of information, but basically it's the writing criteria. Okay, so here's the writing criteria. Now what you can see, if you look across all of these areas up here, you can see all of the different criteria. All right, these are all the different ways that you're judged. Okay, and purpose over here, the big one. Okay, so one of those is called conciseness and clarity. All right, so that's where we're going to be looking at when we talk about doing summarising. But what you need to be doing really in all of these areas is you need to be scoring here like that, minimum, if you want to score a B. Okay, you need to be scoring at minimum of 2 in purpose. You can see it's scored out of 3, and you need to be scoring 5 minimum in all of the other areas. Okay, 5 in all other areas. Now, conciseness and clarity is no different. So let's look at that one a little bit more closely. Okay, look at what it says here. Let me zoom in a little bit up here. There we go, we can see it. Okay, so you can see that to score a band 7, 6 or 5, you have to have these kinds of characteristics in your writing. Now look at some of the words that are important here. Information is summarised effectively. Information is mostly summarised effectively. So that word summary, that word summarise, it's there, it's part of the criteria. So if you're asking yourself, why should I summarise? What's so important about summarising? Well, this tells you, you are judged on summarising. Okay? You can't just repeat everything from the case notes in your writing. You've got to choose what's important and present it in a way which is easy to understand without losing any meaning. Okay, so why summarise? Well, the big answer is because you're judged on that in your writing. Okay, so how do I do it? Well, step 1 is about understanding the task. Okay, there are 2 stages to summarising. 1 is understanding the task, and this is, when do I summarise? Where do I summarise? What do I summarise? Okay, so let's just think about that a little bit more. Okay, so understanding the task. I'm not going to go into too much detail now about how we understand the task, but I'm going to tell you that the first step of doing any summarising is understanding whether or not summarising is suitable. How do we understand whether summarising some detail is suitable? How do we know that we don't put these vital signs in, but we do put those vital signs in? That we don't list all of these symptoms, but we do list those symptoms? Well, it changes from task to task. You know, every task is different. Okay. You know, in one task, you may summarise vital signs. In another, you may present them in detail. Okay, so every task is different. That's the first thing that we need to know. Next thing is, we need to think to ourselves, okay, so I don't always summarise vital signs. Sometimes I put them in detail, sometimes I summarise them. I don't always summarise what happened on the 5th of September. Sometimes I go into detail on the 5th of September. So how do I work that out? Well, you've got to understand purpose. Okay, And the way that you understand purpose is by asking certain questions. You have to understand the following, don't you? Who am I writing to? What do they know? What do they need to know? This is just some basic questions. But these are the three important ones. Who am I writing to? What do they know? And what do they need to know? Well, that's based on things like, what's their profession? What's their relationship with the patient? What kind of tasks am I asking them to do? Okay, you have to go through all of that. And when we do our writing planning, we go through a set of 6 questions, which hopefully give us a really good sense of what's important in the case notes. If I can answer those questions well, then I can identify which content from the case notes I can summarize and which stuff I need to put in full detail. If I don't do this bit properly, then I'm not going to choose the correct content to summarize. Okay? So understanding the purpose of the task is essential. All right? But that's obviously a very important aspect of all of OET writing. Step 2 is the language. Now, I think of this as more mechanical. Now I've identified the thing that I want to summarize, and I think it's a good idea to summarize it. Well, how do I do it? Well, this is mechanical. This is linguistic. You're going to choose certain techniques, certain skills, certain devices in your writing. You're going to put it in this bit in that sentence. I'm going to do that in that sentence. And there are a few different ways that you can make writing appear more concise. Okay? So let's go and have a look at that. So we've got a few different things that we can do. All right? First of all, we can use the passive. And I'll give you an example. Okay? Let's look at this passive. Look at that example. The doctor prescribed Mr. Smith with beta blockers. Well, that's active, isn't it? That is active. When we look how many words there are, the doctor prescribed Mr. Smith with beta blockers. So this is clearly a time where we should use the passive. And I hope that you have already thought about what it could be. It could be a couple of things. Okay? It could be a couple of things. You could say Mr. Smith was prescribed with beta blockers. You could do that. But it's probable that already in this letter we know who is being prescribed. So, actually, wouldn't it be better to do it like this? Beta blockers were prescribed. We know it's for Mr. Smith. The whole letter's about Mr. Smith. I'm not writing about different patients in this letter. So, beta blockers were prescribed. We go from having how many words? We go from having 8 words to having 4 words. 50%. All right? 50% of my sentence gone. More concise. And the reason why I'm doing it, I'm not just saying let's just make it more concise just to be concise. It's not necessary for me to say that the doctor prescribed Mr. Smith with beta blockers. Everyone knows that it's only doctors that prescribe things, isn't it? And Mr. Smith, we know he's the patient in this letter, so it's not necessary for the reader to know this. Let's think about linking clauses. Okay, what do I mean by linking clauses? Well, sentences can be long or they can be short. Well, generally, short sentences have only one clause, and longer sentences have multiple clauses. And clauses are sections that contain ideas. They contain verb phrases. So let's look at a couple here. Okay, let's look at a couple. I think this would be a good one for us to look at. Okay, so linking clauses. Look at this one. Mr. Smith was given guidance on his medication. The medication must be taken daily. All right, okay. So does anything seem a bit repetitive there? Looks a bit repetitive to me. I've got 2 sentences, and the second sentence is about something that's mentioned in the previous sentence. So I'm thinking, couldn't I use a relative clause? Look at that. Mr. Smith was given guidance on his medication, which must be taken daily. It's more concise. It's more professional sounding. That's just a relative clause. Let's look at another one. Mr. Smith has experienced recurrent chest infections in the past 12 months. He has asked for a referral to a specialist for investigations. There doesn't seem to be any problem with that, and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with this. Same with this. There's nothing wrong with it. Grammar's pretty good. It's accurate. But look at this example instead. Having experienced recurrent chest infections in the past 12 months, Mr. Smith has asked for a referral to a specialist for investigations. Okay, now we're sort of becoming a little bit more connected, aren't we? It's also slightly more concise because we've used a participle clause, perfect participle clause. And it means that we don't have to repeat Mr. Smith or he. Also, if I look at this section here, and I'm going to talk about it later on, but if you think about it, he's asked for a referral to a specialist for investigations. Well, we could possibly say Mr. Smith has asked for just a referral to a specialist. Do I need to put for investigations? Or could I put he has asked for specialist investigations? Possibly I could do that as well. Okay, so there are always options that we can look at. All right, now let's go and look at listing. Okay, listing. Look at this for an example. Mr. Smith has been encouraged to do more exercise. He was advised to increase his water intake. Additionally, he should follow his exercise regimen. All right, again, there's no problem with it. It's grammatically correct. It's nicely written. It's very clear. But it's not concise, is it? Okay, I'm repeating the person. I'm repeating the was and from the passive. I'm using multiple verbs. But if you look at it, he's actually been encouraged to do a number of different things. So do I need to say he was encouraged here and he was advised here? Do I need to do that? Look at my list instead. Mr. Smith has been encouraged to do more exercise, increase his water intake, and follow his exercise regimen. So I don't need this advised. I don't need this should. Okay, I can just follow my encouraged to do. Okay, so I put it all in one list. I don't have 3 sentences, and I've got fewer words. It's more connected. It's more professional. Now, something that is a bit tricky, and I can't really go into a lot of detail about it here because it will take me too long, is something called nominalization, which is basically a technique where you can make compound nouns out of either longer noun phrases or from verb phrases. Now, I'll give you an example, but I can't go into it in too much detail, but I'll give you a good example. Here's a really good idea. On the 14th of September 2023, that's in the past, Mr. Smith reported that he had been experiencing nausea and vomiting for 7 days. Okay, so what that tells me is that the nausea and vomiting had happened for 7 days before the 14th of September. And I know that because I'm using the past perfect. Now you might think, wow, that's great writing. That's really good writing. I've used the past perfect continuous. It's really nice. Okay. Well, what about this one? On the 14th of September, Mr. Smith reported a 1-week history of nausea and vomiting. Well, I don't have to go down this difficult route of the past perfect. And instead, I use this great compound noun, a 1-week history. Okay. That is a very nice way to, one, avoid the complexity of past perfect, but also be more concise. And if you think about it, it is a very commonly used professional phrase in medicine. And the last thing that we'll talk about, the last thing I'll mention is useful phrases. Now, a 1-week history, a 2-week history, a 3-month history, that's a great phrase to have in your toolbox? Well, there are other ones as well. So let me give you an example. Upon presentation, Mr. Dagnall's respiratory rate was 25. His heart rate was 110 and his blood pressure was 88/60. Okay, so is there a way that I could be more concise here? Now you might think, you might say he's got a high respiratory rate, he's got a high heart rate, and he's got low blood pressure. So you could say hypertension maybe, if you wanted to there. Or you could use some of the medical terms. Yeah, you could use the medical terms, that would be okay. But I prefer to put numbers in instead of descriptions. So instead, if you say he had a low blood pressure, I don't like that, because how low was it? Right, he had a high heart rate. Well, how high was it? The numbers are much more useful for a reader in most circumstances than just descriptions. But what would be even better here? Okay, if you were just summarising for someone, if you were just saying, okay, well, this happened a week ago and he's being treated and now he's being discharged. What about a phrase like this? He was hemodynamically unstable. If he has been treated already, then we don't need to know what those vital signs were. If somebody has not been treated, then we do need the vital signs. Okay, and then we put the numbers. So this is good if not treated yet. But this one, if treated, why do we need to know? We don't need to know all those numbers. So that's a great phrase. Another great phrase might be something like withdrawal symptoms, okay, or inflammation. These are great phrases that indicate a number of different signs. So inflammation could be red, painful, swollen. That's inflammation. Withdrawal symptoms could be shakes, nausea, headache. Okay, you can say a phrase that combines all of those together. Okay, so we've got two different things. If you're thinking to yourself, how can I become more concise? First thing is, consider, should I do my summarising in this area? Okay, consider what should be summarised. Then have the language, okay, and have those techniques in your toolbox that enable you to do it. So some advice, and my advice, doesn't change much, okay? But in this case, in OET writing, understand the criteria. When you're thinking about how to improve your writing, don't just think, oh, I'm going to do this because this will improve it. Look at the criteria and do what they want. Okay, and if you see a word that in the conciseness and clarity that says information summarized effectively, then you need to learn how to summarize, and that's a part of your writing that you should improve. Techniques, okay, learn the techniques. Nominalization's really good, okay, using different clauses is really good, using listings really good. So learn techniques. Practice your grammar. If you recognize, yeah, relative clause is really good for the introduction, that's a great technique, practice it. 15 minutes a day. And the last thing, which is really important, get feedback. If you learn the techniques and you want to practice them and you want to get some feedback on it and understand if it's good or if it doesn't work, well, go to a premium provider, ask someone to give you some feedback. Okay, at SET English, where we always give feedback to people if they send their writing in. Okay, so that's it really. I hope this was useful. If you want to learn any more about this, obviously we've got loads of other videos that talk about things like understanding the task and identifying purpose and all of the grammar sections. So good luck and study well. Okay. If you're watching this live, put a comment underneath if you want any information or any help about doing summarising. If you want some feedback, just let us know and we'd be happy to send some stuff through to you or get you enrolled in our school. All right. Okay. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.